I remember the exact moment everything shifted, not because it was dramatic or loud, but because it was so small, so quietly out of place, that it burned itself into my brain like a scar. It was a Tuesday, and I'd just gotten back from a 3-day work trip to Cleveland, tired, craving a hot shower, and planning to fall asleep on the couch watching trash TV. I tossed my keys into the ceramic bowl by the door, kicked off my shoes like I always did, and dragged my suitcase through the hallway toward our bedroom. Kate was at work, or so I thought. She'd left me a sticky note on the fridge that morning saying she had a late client meeting and probably wouldn't be home until 9. Don't wait up. Love you. I didn't think twice about it. I was used to those notes lately, casual affection scribbled like a grocery list. I opened the bedroom door expecting silence and a pile of laundry on the bed because that's how she always left it when she rushed out the door. Instead, I saw something that made me stop mid-step. It was her earring, just one of them, sitting on the dresser by the mirror. Not the pair she wore to work, not the small ones she always claimed were professional, but one of the long, dangly ones she usually saved for date nights or parties, the kind that caught the light when she laughed. I picked it up instinctively, rolling it between my fingers, confused because I knew she hadn't worn those in months. And then I noticed something else. Underneath it, barely visible at first glance, was a tie. Not mine. It was neatly folded, expensive-looking, and had a faint smell of cologne I didn't recognize. I stood there for a few seconds, not quite believing what I was seeing, because who the hell leaves a tie on another man's dresser unless they feel safe there? Unless they think they'll come back for it. I didn't touch it. I just stared. And for the first time in a long time, I listened to the silence of the house, to my own breathing, to the soft buzz of a distant neighbor's lawn mower outside. I walked over to the closet and opened the door like I was hoping to find a rational explanation hanging between my shirts. There was nothing unusual there, just clothes. But then I noticed the faint smell again, same as the tie, and realized it clung to one of her scarves. That's when the knot started forming in my stomach. It wasn't proof. Not yet. But it was enough to change how I looked at everything. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just stood there for a long time with that earring in my hand, trying to remember the last time she'd worn it, trying to remember the last time she wore something like that for me. Later that evening, when Kate got home, she came in humming to herself, tossed her purse on the kitchen counter, and started telling me about her client from hell who made her stay at the office late. I watched her as she talked, nodding in the right places, pretending like nothing was off. She didn't notice that I hadn't said much. She didn't notice I hadn't touched my drink. She certainly didn't notice that the earring was no longer on the dresser. It was in my pocket, burning a hole through the lining, reminding me with every shift of my weight that something in our house no longer fit. I asked her a question halfway through her rant. Who's been here? She froze for half a second, just a flicker of confusion on her face before she laughed. What? No one's been here. Why? I shrugged. Just looked like someone moved some stuff around. Oh, maybe the cleaning lady. I had her come by while you were gone. We don't have a cleaning lady, I said, slowly. You always said we didn't need one. Kate blinked, opened her mouth, then closed it again. She reached for her wine glass. Right. I was thinking about getting one, actually. Maybe I should. That's when I knew. Not from the tie, not from the earring, but from the way she suddenly looked at me, not like a husband, not like a partner, but like a problem she hadn't prepared to solve yet. It didn't take long after that for everything to start falling apart. The next morning, I pretended like I believed her story. I made coffee, handed her a mug like I always did, and kissed her on the cheek before she left for work. She smiled and asked if I wanted anything from the store. I told her no, and she walked out the door like everything was fine. The second it clicked shut, I set my mug down and walked straight to the bedroom. I opened her drawer, the one where she kept her jewelry, and dumped it out onto the bed. The matching earring wasn't there. Neither were the backup ones she kept for emergencies, like if she forgot a set before a meeting. I looked through the tiny velvet boxes and the plastic divider trays. Nothing. That confirmed it for me. If she wasn't lying, the other earring should have been in there. But it wasn't, because she'd worn them both, and only one made it back. That night, I tried again. I asked casually about the meeting she had, where it was, who was there. She gave me a name I didn't recognize and said it was someone from corporate. I nodded like I knew who she meant and then asked what the meeting was about. She said it was confidential. I asked if that guy had ever been here. She said no, without hesitation. I didn't push further. I didn't need to. She was too confident in her answers. Too rehearsed. So I stopped asking questions and started making plans. A couple of days later, she told me she'd be working late again. This time, I told her I was going to a bar with a few guys from work. She barely reacted. Just said, "Okay, don't drink too much." That was it. No curiosity, no follow-up. I nodded, waited for her to leave, and then I stayed put. I parked a block down the street and waited in my car with the lights off. 2 hours later, a car I didn't recognize pulled into our driveway. It was a gray SUV, tinted windows, newer model, not the kind someone randomly borrows. The passenger door opened and Kate stepped out, adjusting her skirt as she walked to the front door. She didn't even look around. She just waved back at the driver and unlocked the door like nothing was wrong. I didn't follow her in. I wasn't ready. I needed more than suspicion. I needed something real, something undeniable. So the next day, I took the day off without telling her. After she left for work, I called a locksmith, had a copy made of her office key from the spare she kept in the kitchen drawer, and then I drove across town to her building. I waited until lunch hour, when the office would be mostly empty, and used the key to get in. I went straight to her desk. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I figured I'd know it when I saw it. There was a drawer locked. Just one. Everything else opened easily. That one drawer was locked with a small silver keyhole, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. I checked her bag at home that night when she was in the shower. Found the key tucked into a zipped side pocket next to a half-used pack of gum. I took it, made a copy the next morning, and put it back before she noticed. The next day, I went back to the office with the new key and opened the drawer. Inside, there were photos. Not many, but enough. A few printouts from what looked like a photo booth. One with her and the guy from the SUV, both laughing, one of them kissing, one where his hand was clearly on her waist under her shirt. There was also a hotel receipt, folded and tucked under a manila envelope, along with a printed itinerary for a conference I'd never heard her mention before. All of it was dated for last month. All of it confirmed what I already knew. I took pictures of everything with my phone, put it all back exactly how I found it, locked the drawer, and walked out of the office like I had just filed paperwork, like I hadn't just watched my marriage die in real time. That night, I didn't say a word to her. I made dinner. We watched a show. She scrolled through her phone during the commercials. At one point, she laughed at something on her screen, turned to show me, then seemed to think better of it, and put her phone face down on the coffee table. I stared at her for a second too long, and she noticed. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "You're looking at me like I did something wrong." "Did you?" She raised her eyebrows, tilted her head, and forced a smile. "No." "What kind of question is that?" I shrugged. "Just wondering." She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. "You're weird sometimes." "You don't know the half of it," I said, quietly. She laughed again, got up, and went to bed. I sat on the couch for another hour, staring at the TV, not watching anything. I thought about the tie, the earring, the drawer. I thought about the SUV and how easily she lied to my face. I thought about how long it had probably been going on, how many times she had come home and hugged me with someone else's scent still clinging to her skin. I thought about how she used to look at me, and how that look had slowly disappeared without me even noticing. The worst part wasn't the lies. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the fact that I didn't feel surprised. Somewhere deep down, I'd been expecting this. And that made me feel like I'd already lost long before I ever found the evidence. I didn't plan the confrontation like some grand scheme. There was no dramatic setup, no audience, no script in my head. It happened the following weekend, and honestly, I thought I could still wait. I had no real timeline, no date set to bring everything to light, but sometimes your body takes over when your mind drags its feet. That Saturday morning, Kate was doing laundry in the basement. I had just finished a shower and walked into our bedroom. Her phone was sitting there, face up on the nightstand, unlocked. She must have been replying to something before heading down. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it, but that day, something about it being unlocked made it feel like an invitation or maybe a test. Either way, I picked it up and opened her messaging app. Second message from the top was from someone saved as D. I tapped it open. There were texts about meeting up again. Him asking if she could get away Monday. Her replying she'd have to say it's a late meeting again. He said he missed her. She sent him a photo of her in a dress, asking if he remembered how she looked in it the last time. It didn't even feel like reading a conversation anymore. It was like overhearing two people talk in your own house, like they didn't even care you could hear them. I heard her footsteps coming back up the stairs. I didn't put the phone down. I waited until she stepped into the doorway, holding a laundry basket, and then I raised her phone up and looked at her. I guess you're meeting with Derek on Monday? I asked, voice calm, flat. She froze. Her mouth opened slightly like she was going to speak, but no words came. I stood up, phone still in hand. I read the whole thing. Not just today. I went to your office. Opened that drawer you thought I wouldn't notice. Her mouth moved again, this time forming the start of a sentence. Steve, no, I don't want the explanation yet. I want the truth. All of it. How long, how often, who else knows? I want to hear the words, not guesses, not lies. Right now. She set the basket down slowly, like delaying a moment would change the outcome. Her hands trembled just a bit, and for a second, I thought she might still try to lie her way out. But then she walked over and sat on the bed. It's been 4 months, she said, finally. I met him at that fundraiser my company hosted. He works with one of our partner firms. It wasn't supposed to be anything. I didn't plan it. He flirted. I flirted back. It just happened. I didn't sit. I stayed standing across from her, arms crossed, still holding the phone. And it just kept happening? She nodded slowly, looking down. Where? Hotels, once at his place, never here. Why not here? Because that felt like it would ruin everything completely. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because that logic was so pathetically weak it deserved a reaction. So doing it in hotels and at his place was fine, but here would have been the line? It's her home, she whispered, like that meant something now. I looked at her. Really looked at her. This was the same woman I'd shared a bed with for nearly a decade, the same woman I'd cooked for, fought with, celebrated birthdays and anniversaries with, and she was sitting there now like a stranger. No panic, no tears, just that rehearsed calm of someone who had gone over this conversation in her head 100 times and was only now realizing the real version didn't play out as cleanly. So what now? I asked. You think we keep pretending? You want me to sleep beside you and make dinner while you sneak out again next week? She shook her head. I wasn't going to keep it going. I already told him it was over. When? 3 days ago. Because I got close? Because I felt guilty. I stared at her, waiting for even a flinch, a flicker of discomfort or shame that might tell me she meant that. But she looked steady, maybe a little tired, maybe even relieved. I don't believe that, I said. You didn't feel guilty. You got sloppy. You knew eventually you'd slip up. You didn't want me to be the one to find out. That's not true, she said, and for the first time, there was heat in her voice. I made a mistake. Yes. A huge one. But I wasn't trying to hurt you. You don't get to decide whether I get hurt or not. You made that choice when you kept seeing him. You made that choice every time you came home, looked me in the face, and lied. She stood up then, something shifting in her stance. Do you think you've been easy to live with? You shut down months ago. You hardly talk. You act like a ghost in this house. I didn't back down. I shut down because I felt something was wrong. I shut down because I was trying to understand why my wife was slipping away and wouldn't talk to me. I was trying to figure out what I did, what I missed. And instead of asking, you spied on me? Broke into my office? Read my messages? I did, I said, because I needed the truth. And you weren't going to give it to me. She went quiet again, then looked at me with this mix of exhaustion and challenge. So what now? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because saying it out loud would make it too real. I walked past her, out of the room, and closed the door behind me. Revenge wasn't about noise or making a scene. It wasn't about screaming matches or slashing tires or some showy act that would land me in jail or make me look pathetic. What I wanted was precision. I wanted her to feel everything she took from me, piece by piece, in ways that looked calm on the outside but burned her from the inside out. So I started small. I stopped speaking to her unless it was absolutely necessary. She'd ask a question. I'd give a one-word answer. She'd try to start a conversation over dinner, and I'd chew my food in silence and leave the table as soon as I was done. No arguments, no emotion. Just blank space where a husband used to be. The first real move came a week later. I waited until she left for her usual gym session on Saturday morning. I knew her schedule to the minute, and she always took her time there, even more now that she assumed things had cooled off. I spent that morning backing up everything: emails, text logs, the photos I took in her office, even the receipts. I didn't send it anywhere yet, just organized it into a digital folder and gave it a neutral name. Then I printed it. Every page neatly organized into a binder. I wasn't planning on showing it to her. That would have been too easy. No, this wasn't for her. It was for someone who mattered to her. Her older sister. They were close. Spoke every few days. Her sister had always been protective of me, too, weirdly enough. She was the one who gave the toast at our wedding saying how I brought peace to Kate's life, how I was the only guy she ever dated that didn't make her feel small. I mailed the binder to her house with a simple note that said, "I thought you should see who she really is." No name, no explanation, just the facts. The next day, Kate came into the kitchen looking like someone had drained all the blood from her face. She didn't speak. I knew then that the binder had arrived. "Did you send something to Heather?" she finally asked, voice tight. "Yes," I replied, not even looking up from my laptop. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I looked at her. "What's wrong with me? You mean besides being cheated on for months and lied to daily in my own house?" "Yeah, I guess I'm just a little sensitive. That was between us. You don't involve family. You involved me in your relationship with another man, so I thought it was only fair to give someone else a front row seat. You've humiliated me." "No," I said, "you did that to yourself." She didn't respond, just turned and walked out, but I could tell that one landed exactly where it was supposed to. A few days later, I withdrew half of our joint savings account. Legally, I had the right. It was a shared account. I moved the money into a separate account under my name, and then I started shopping. Not for myself. For her. More specifically, for a new laptop and a prepaid phone. I boxed them both up with a typed note that read, "You'll need these for your new life. Mine is moving on." I left the box on her car seat the next morning. No warning, no message. Just that. I watched from the window as she opened her car, saw the box, and stood there for a long time. She didn't open it. Just held the steering wheel for what felt like a minute, then eventually got in and drove off. By the end of that week, I had moved all the bills out of my name. Water, electric, internet. Everything she used every day was now hers alone to manage. I didn't cut anything off. I wasn't looking to ruin her. I just wanted her to feel the weight of responsibility she took for granted. No more shared safety net. No more automatic payments from an account she didn't earn. If she wanted independence, I was giving it to her completely. Then came the part one didn't enjoy, but I knew it had to be done. I went to see Derek. I knew where he worked. I'd looked him up the second I read his name. I didn't go there to fight or scream or make a mess. I waited in the parking lot during his lunch break. When he walked out, I stepped in front of him. He looked surprised, maybe a little guilty, but not scared. "Steve, right?" he said. I nodded. "We need to talk." He looked around. "Is this going to be a problem?" "No, just a conversation." He motioned for us to move off to the side. We stood by a concrete pillar, out of the way of foot traffic. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo. One of the ones from the drawer. Him and Kate, clear as day. "I just want you to know I know everything," I said. "And I want to be absolutely clear. You will never contact her again." He looked at the phone, then back at me. "She said it was over." "It is. But if I ever hear otherwise, I will send these to your boss, your HR department, and your family. This is not a threat. It's a guarantee. Don't test me." He didn't argue. Just nodded, face stiff. "Understood." "Good," I said, and walked away. Back home, Kate was in the kitchen when I returned. She turned, opened her mouth like she wanted to ask where I'd been, but I walked past her without a word. I could feel her watching me, waiting, realizing piece by piece that she wasn't going to get a scene, wasn't going to get closure, wasn't going to get anything. Because what I was giving her was emptiness. And nothing is heavier than that. She finally asked to talk 2 days later. It was evening, the house was quiet, and I was halfway through a late dinner when she came and stood by the dining table. I kept eating. I wasn't going to give her the courtesy of starting the conversation. She had to ask for it, and when she did, her voice was lower than usual. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up right away, but when I did, I set my fork down and leaned back slightly in the chair. "Sure. Now's as good a time as any." She pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. Her hands stayed in her lap, probably so I wouldn't see them shaking. Her voice was steady, but I could tell she was forcing that calm. "I just need to know what you want. I don't even know where we stand anymore. Are you planning to divorce me, or what?" I looked at her for a while before answering. "I've been thinking about it. A lot." She nodded slowly, as if she expected that. And I don't think I can stay married to someone I can't look at without replaying every lie they told me. "I didn't mean for it to get this far." "You mean you didn't mean for me to find out?" "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Because I've gone over this 100 times. You had chances. Every day was a chance to stop. Every lie was a decision. You had weeks, months to come clean. You never did." She leaned forward. "I wanted to. I swear I did. But you didn't. Because you wanted both lives. You wanted to play around and still come home to me like everything was fine. You wanted the comfort of marriage without the work. That's what you chose. I was lost. Things between us weren't right. And cheating fixed that? No, she said, her voice cracking a little for the first time. It made everything worse. I know that. We sat there for a few seconds in silence. I wanted to believe she meant that, but it didn't change anything. So why not just leave? I asked. Why stay with me while sneaking around behind my back? She paused before answering. Because I still loved you. I know that sounds impossible to believe now, but I did. I do. I got caught in something I didn't know how to stop. That's not love, Kate. That's habit. That's guilt. That's comfort. But it's not love. She didn't argue. She looked down at the table and nodded. I don't know who I am without you. That's your problem to figure out. I spent enough years worrying about you. Now it's my turn. So that's it. You're done. I thought about it. Not just about her, but everything we built. The trips. The holidays. The little traditions. All of it now sat behind this wall of betrayal I couldn't climb over, no matter how many good memories tried to push through. Yeah, I said. I think I am. She looked up again, and her eyes were wet but not crying. I deserve this. I know that. I didn't do all this to punish you. I did it to protect myself. To make sure I don't wake up one day wondering why I stayed. I don't want to fight you on any of it. If we're divorcing, I won't make it messy. That's appreciated. She swallowed, her voice almost a whisper. Are you going to tell everyone? I already told who needed to know. Your sister, the guy you were with. That's it. I don't need to make it a show. She nodded. I'll find somewhere else to stay by the end of the month. That's fine. I'm not rushing you. I'm just not living in this limbo anymore. She stood up slowly, like she had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I'll start packing tomorrow. Let me know if you need help with anything. I'm not looking to hurt you, Kate. I just can't be here with you like this. She took a deep breath, and for a second I saw the version of her I remembered. The one from our early days. The one who looked at me like I mattered more than anyone. But that version was gone now, buried under months of silence, hidden messages, and choices that couldn't be undone. I really did love you, she said. Then you should have acted like it. She left the room without another word. I picked up my fork and finished my dinner. The day she moved out was ordinary in every way except for what it meant. There were no screaming matches, no dramatic scenes. She packed methodically, starting with her clothes and toiletries, moving on to the desk drawers and photo albums. We barely spoke. I helped her carry the heavier boxes down to the car, not because I wanted to, but because it seemed like the only respectful thing left to offer. She didn't thank me. I didn't expect her to. It took most of the afternoon. The only time we really stopped was when she picked up one of the framed pictures from our wedding. She looked at it longer than she looked at anything else that day. She didn't say anything, didn't ask if she could take it, just placed it on the table and moved on to the next thing. I didn't comment either. That picture was no longer ours. By evening, most of her stuff was gone. What was left were the things that didn't matter: an old scarf, a half-used candle, a cracked phone charger. When she finally stood at the door, keys in her hand, she hesitated. I stayed where I was, standing by the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching her without saying a word. She turned and looked at me. So, this is it, I guess. I nodded. Yeah, this is it. I don't really know what to say. There's not much left to say. She hesitated. I hope someday you can forgive me. I probably will, I said. But that doesn't mean we go back. She nodded again, slowly. I know. There was a long silence. Then she opened the door, stepped outside, and closed it behind her without looking back. I waited until I heard her car pull out of the driveway. Only then did I let myself sit down. The first night alone was strange, but not in the way I expected. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. What I felt was more like relief. Not because I was glad she was gone, but because the constant pretending, the second-guessing, the dull pressure behind every moment, those things were gone now. The house was quiet in a way that didn't feel hostile or tense. It was just empty, and I could finally breathe in it. In the following days, I didn't tell many people. My brother asked how things were going, and I told him the truth. He offered to come over with beer, and I said maybe another time. A couple of mutual friends messaged me after Kate posted a vague update on social media about moving forward and new beginnings. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need sympathy or opinions. I just needed space. One night, about a week later, I sat at the dining table with a pen and a notepad. I wasn't journaling or anything like that. I just started listing everything I had to take care of. Change the locks, update the billing info for utilities, clear her name from the mortgage, sort the divorce paperwork, find a new primary contact for my work benefits. It was mundane stuff, but it helped me process the situation better than any therapy session could have. With each item I crossed off, I felt more stable. Kate messaged me once during that time. She said she'd forgotten a pair of shoes and asked if she could come by to pick them up. I told her I'd leave them on the porch. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was the last time we communicated directly. What surprised me most wasn't how fast things changed, but how quickly I adapted to the change. I cooked what I wanted. I watched the shows she used to hate. I rearranged the furniture in the living room because I'd always hated the way she set it up. I deleted her Netflix profile without thinking twice. I moved her old winter coat from the closet to the garbage bin without a moment of hesitation. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't bitterness. It was just cleaning out a space that no longer belonged to her. One evening, I sat in the backyard, a beer in one hand, looking at the small patch of garden we always meant to fix up but never got around to. I thought about all the conversations we had out there, the ones that used to feel honest. I thought about the months leading up to the affair, how distant she had become, how often I had blamed myself for not being more exciting or less predictable. I realized then that it was never about what I lacked. It was about her own emptiness, the kind I could never have filled, no matter how much I gave. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't always explode your life. Sometimes it just slowly changes how you see everything. I wasn't destroyed. I wasn't broken. I was just awake for the first time in a long while. When people asked what happened between us, I told them we grew apart. That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole story. The truth was messy, but it was mine to carry, and I had no interest in turning it into a public performance. I didn't need to be the victim or the survivor. I was just someone who figured out, a little too late, that love doesn't mean loyalty and marriage doesn't mean safety. And as for what's next, I don't have a grand plan. I've started running again. I signed up for a night class in woodworking. I've been cooking more, sleeping better, and I don't feel like I have to explain myself to anyone. That's enough for now. That's the real closure. Kate is gone. And so is the man who spent years trying to be enough for someone who was never really present. I don't miss her. I don't wish her well. I just don't think about her much anymore.